Their top three guys: Jeremiah Davenport, David Julius, and Micah Adams-Woods. What are the challenges those guys present, Kelvin?
Well, Davenport is one of the best three-point shooters in the conference. He's a weapon. Big fan of his. I think he's a high-level player. He's plays at both ends. High level shooter. DeJulius probably was going to be the starting point guard at Michigan. That's where he transferred from. He's playing at that level now. Last year, like a lot of guys, our guys do the same thing. They struggle the first year, a lot like Quentin, and then because of their experience, they're a lot more comfortable and more sure of themselves. Their second year, DeJulius is an all-conference player. He's playing at a high level. The Adams-Woods kid is really, really good decision maker. His assist-to-turnover ratio is top 3 in the nation. He just doesn't turn it over. Runs Coach Miller's stuff extremely efficiently. So they got a good team, man. I mean, I watched them play SMU at home, and they're up 20-some most of the game there. So we know how good Cincinnati is.
Kelvin, you've done some special things with your players during Black History Month in the past. Anything you have planned this go around that you might be able to share?
We already did it. No, nothing really important to share. Just the fact that it's Black History Month's enough.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. We'll go to Pat Forty with Sports Illustrated. Pat, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Kelvin. Between injuries and natural transition, you've got a very different team from last year, but still performing at a really high rate. What is the key to consistency in an era where turnover is constant?
Well, I don't know if consistency is in the cards for us because we have so many. Our margin of error is not great. I think for us, prior to all the injuries, was having depth to play 40 minutes. If your calling card is playing hard, then I think depth becomes more important. We're playing 3 guards and a kid that's coming off a tendon detachment surgery as our other guard. I find myself now, coaching more for the second half. We playing these, like Kyler had to play 40 minutes the other night. We couldn't get him out because we had a kid get 4 fouls so early. So, I'm not dodging the question, but for me, it's not as much consistency as much managing the game and, making sure our kids just aren't worn down in the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes, that we can finish games. So I find myself substituting, prior to timeouts, letting them rest during that stretch. Whereas before, that's just something I would never have done. I would have just subbed another guy in and let him go, and the other guy would have been fresh. But right now, we don't have that luxury. But you just adjust, Pat. You get stuck in these situations, you embrace them. You don't run from them. There's no, well, if we had this, but nah, come on, man. These kids want to win. As a coach, your responsibility is to help them. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We'll go to Chris Gardner, please. Chris, go ahead.
Coach, with the limited bodies and I guess not being able to go 5-on-5, are you spending more time in film work or video work now to prepare for an opponent?
No, well, you can spend too much time watching video, or film. These guys are, they don't have, they can sit down and watch Netflix or watch stuff on their phones for countless hours. But when it comes to film, you're going to lose them. So we do watch, we have a routine. We haven't changed our game prep routine. I think we spent more time teaching and going 5-on-0. And with the schedule we come, you get paranoid. I get a little paranoid this time of year with injuries. We've always, we've had, forget the ones we've had. We're past that. I want to make sure we get to the game with the guys we do have. That's my biggest challenge. So, we don't do, we just don't do any 5-on-0 work. We don't have enough guards, first of all. We have enough bigs. We can go J1 versus Fabian, Reggie versus Josh, JDR, Kieran. We've got plenty of bigs. We just, for practice, we just don't have enough guards. So a lot of 5-on-0 stuff, a lot of scout report stuff, and a lot of shooting. Most coaches don't go that long this time anyway. So we're no different than anybody else with that.
And then what are your thoughts on the job Coach Miller's doing at Cincinnati?
Yeah. He and Kellen have been good friends for a long time. I'm kind of an old goat now, so I don't know a lot of the younger coaches. Kellen knows them, but I know them through Kellen. Big fan of Wes. Kellen was at Appalachian State when Wes was at UNC Greensboro. And Kellen would always tell me what a good coach he was. I never saw his teams play. But since he's been at Cincinnati, well, what a great hire they made there. He's got, when these old guys filter out, these new guys come in. That's why the game's in so much better shape. Guys like Wes Miller are the game's in good shape when you got great young coaches like him.
Go to Joseph Duarte. Joseph, please go ahead.
Good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Joseph.
Kelvin, we've talked to you in the past about when you got here and the guys that were part of the build and Galen, for instance. But I was curious when you have those guys, and then how important is it to have the next group like a Fabian that sort of keeps the consistency going, that keeps you can have a great year and then it just fall apart again, but they sort of kept the ball rolling. And I was just wondering, with Fabian specifically, having him close to that record of wins that all his teammates have helped him achieve, what that means to have that consistency after you started the initial build when you got here.
Well, first of all, Joseph, I'm not used to looking at you with a shaved face. Where's your Scrabble, man?
And that was the lazy month. I'm back to normal.
Yeah. Well, you look 10 years younger, so
well, appreciate it.
Use that as motivation.
I will.
Yeah, coaches can create culture, but the reason why it lives and travels and never dies is because of the players. When you have high character kids that care about doing things the way that we do them, I can throw some terminology out there, but that's irrelevant. These kids care. They care about the program. They're guardians of the program. There's organizations in college basketball that says the guardians of the game. Well, what returning players are, they're guardians of the culture, and they take pride in it. You won't see any sayings on our walls. I'm not smart enough to come up with anything original, so I'll copy something that somebody said and set to the team maybe, but the only thing that's on our walls is culture. And our guys take pride in that. And I think you can tell a sustainable program by how many former players stay connected to the program. On any given week, yesterday, I was on the phone with Nate Hinton. He was so excited about the game he had played the night before. Wes Van Beck was in the locker room the other night. When Marcus had his surgery and Tremont had his surgery, we were doing Zoom calls with those kids during our film sessions. And That's the stuff I'm proud of. I'm proud of the program because of the players that they take pride in it. They take ownership. Fabian was a freshman when Galen and Corey Davis, I think that was the year we lost to Kentucky in the Sweet 16, if I'm not mistaken. Fabian was a freshman. Is that right? Fabian's been around here.
I believe I think it was the Michigan year.
Yeah. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. He was, when we lost to Michigan on that shot that kid hit, he was a freshman on that team. But he's had the luxury of watching all those guys that came before him. And now, Jamal Shedd, you look at Jamal Shedd and Javier Francis, a lot of our young kids in the program now, they're learning how to be a Cougar basketball player by watching Fabian. So, from a coach, it's kind of like being a father. You just take pride in watching your kids take ownership in the program and keep this culture thing going.
Joseph, we'll go back to Pat 40, please. Pat, go ahead.
Yeah. Kelvin, following up on that, getting players who fit your culture and play as hard as you want them to, how easy or hard is that, and how much is that kind of part of your recruiting, is looking for guys that fit the way you guys do things?
Well, Pat, it's not hard to get talent. That's not hard to do. If you just want to go get talent, get good players, get them. What's hard is the question you asked. That's the hard part, getting them to buy into something bigger than themselves. But we've been here long enough that we battled through some rough spots. We lost 19 games our first year. And it could have been more. We went 4 in a row there at the end of the year. That could have been 20 some. But I think we started something then with that group that was left. We had a ton of injuries and defections, as most first year guys will have when they take over programs that need rebuilding. But we started that first year. And those guys that lost that first year became my favorite group. That was my favorite team since I've been here. I still stay in touch with those kids. Most of them are basketball coaches that are coaching high school basketball here in Houston. One is a scout for Rockets. 2 or 3 went on to play. Their careers are over. But those kids never quit. That's an important thing to me. I don't think you ever lose in anything as long as you don't quit. You're going to be on the wrong end of the score some nights. You're going to get beat. But don't quit, man. Just you get knocked down. You get up. Fight. That's what we try to get our kids to understand. I'm not afraid to lose. I get that. I get what our record is, how much we've won. But, losing is right around the corner. And you got to have a bunch of kids you don't mind losing with. Because if you got talent without substance, now you've got issues when you lose. And I learned that from Tony Bennett. When Tony Bennett lost to UMBC, he said something that really resonated with me. He said, I have a group of kids I don't mind losing with. And I think that goes to recruiting kids that are character kids that can handle adversity. Talent without character usually equals immaturity. Immature kids become high maintenance. If you've got multiple high maintenance kids on your team, then you don't have a team.
Thank you, Pat. We'll go back to Chris Gardner. We've got time for a couple more questions. Chris, go ahead.
Coach, do you have any thoughts on the passing of Bill Fitch?
I was texting Kevin McHale yesterday when I was working with the Rockets and Kevin was the head coach. I used to love listening to his Chief stories, Birdie stories, but the best stories were about Coach Fitch. He put 10, I was trying to envision this, putting 10 minutes on the clock and doing 3-on-2, 2-on-1 for 10 consecutive minutes. I think I'd rather just go run 2 miles. That's hard to do. but other than that, I may have met him once or twice in his later years. Did not have a relationship with him. Did not know him enough to. Other than that, I basically knew him through Kevin, and Kevin had unbelievable respect for him.
We'll go to Joseph Duarte. Joseph, go ahead.
Kelvin, I wanted to check on the guys that are dealing with stuff like Marcus and Tremont. Are there any milestones coming up or anything that they're doing that maybe you know along the process, rehab wise, or Reggie, for instance, how's his hand doing?
Yeah, Reggie's hand is, he went for a while there where he didn't get it banked, and then last game he got hit again. So he'll go from 1 to 10, he'll get up to a 5 or 6 and starting to heal, and bam, he goes right back to a 2 or 3. I think the worst it was the Alabama game. He was basically playing that game with one hand. I felt bad for him. I think right after that's when I sat him down. Sometimes you have to save them from themselves. Marcus is off crutches. He's on the boot now. He's in the weight room every morning at 10 o'clock with Bishop. He's lifting. And then he does his rehab with John, 10:45. Tremont's on the same schedule. Obviously, Tremont's doing everything upper body. I'm sorry, Tremont's doing everything lower body. Marcus is doing everything upper body. But, we're lucky that we have a great trainer. John Houston is a horse now. He's really good. Our kids love him. They trust him. And so do I. So those guys are progressing. Marcus is, Marcus is like a caged animal. He comes to practice and, I make him sit down because we have a no sitting rule in practice, but I have to make Marcus and Tremont both sit down. And then Marcus sits there and tries to coach the guards. And Tremont doesn't say much. Of course, Tremont doesn't say much anytime. But both those kids are real connected. They haven't been cleared to travel yet with the team, but, they're with us every day and they have their routines they go through.